Saturday morning Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast as we cover this winter weather system that'll be impacting the Northeast and Northern Mid Atlantic states later today and overnight. So we're going to get right to it right here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And please lend your support to the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast because we like to eat too. So if you can do it by simply doing your Amazon shopping using our referral link at the top of the chat board. It's very simple. Just use the link, search for your stuff, you buy it. Amazon throws us back some coin for sending you there. It doesn't cost you 1 cent. The only effort you will apply is the actual clicking on the link. So we appreciate those of you who have done this and those of you who will do this by shopping our referral link on Amazon. Sometimes I like to be subtle, like a garlic sandwich, Joe. Um, all right, so here we are. I woke up this morning to a message from one of my snow removal guys that I do some work with, and of course, as you know, how I abhor forecast shopping. Unless there's a referral link to Amazon for forecast shopping, I am totally against it. So he saw um, the Weather Channel said 5 to 8 for Long Island. Um,
Ouch.
some weather app that he has said 1 to 3. And I forgot he quoted somebody else with 3 to 5. So we wanted to know which one to go with. I'm like, my God, I can't imagine people who just, people who do that, you know, uh, looking for that whatever that number is that's going to make them feel psychologically good. So they shop around to all this stuff. I think the bottom line is I went from the very get go. I went on the low end of guidance. And I feel very good about that. I didn't change a thing from my early call, and we'll just let it play out the way it's going to play out. There are a few things going on with this system that are decidedly different from what we were looking at just 2 days ago, which is going to make a difference in terms of the snow amounts.
Well, I think the two things about this storm, Joe, is that once it gets in here, we're going to have the main period of snow or precipitation from 7 o'clock Eastern time tonight to 1 in the morning. I think for all intents and purposes, after 1 a.m. tonight, it's pretty much over with. I mean, no, I won't say over in the sense that you're not going to see anything any falling from the skies after 1 a.m., but the bulk of what is going to fall, the lion's share of what's going to fall in and around the tri-state area is going to come during that 6 hour period from 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. And after that, actually, for a good part of the area, it may not necessarily be snow. I'm thinking that we could see some sleet. The area of the atmosphere from about 12,000 to 18,000 feet up in the mid and latter part of the storm is going to be warming up quite rapidly. And as a result, instead of snow, we may see a conversion over to mixed snow and sleet, and then eventually all sleet for a while. And I'm talking about even for places where I am, up in Putnam County or in Orange County. This looks like a broad swath of sleet that's coming in, but it will be coming in on the heels of the heaviest precipitation. So I think that whatever we see, whatever your snowfall total is going to be, the final total or much of the total, it'll come by midnight, 1 a.m. And then after that, from 1 a.m. until daybreak or shortly thereafter, it's going to be more of a sleety type of situation as opposed to snow on top of the snow that has already accumulated.
Right. We should also say for Central and South Jersey, for Pennsylvania, this is really going to be mostly a minimal snowfall. It's more about sleet. And as you work your way inland, it's also going to be about freezing rain and some icing again. That's the primary problem. It's kind of a strange system, the way it's tilted and how the atmosphere is working, that it's actually warmer. In some instances, it's actually warmer west and going northwest than it is going east and southeast. So anyway, you have a snowfall forecast map, and they're hanging on tender hooks here on the chat board. And for those that are
All right.
lurking in the background on this Saturday morning Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which normally we would do on Sunday evening at 7:35, but we will not be doing a Sunday evening program.
I presume a lot of people on Sunday evenings will be either at a Super Bowl party or in their own living room watching the Super Bowl. So that takes precedence this weekend over. And since this is the main, the Super Bowl of weather is actually tonight. If you're a snow lover, or at least if you're hoping for snow, why do a show in the immediate aftermath? That would be just the post mortem. We're alerting you now as to what to expect. So I have on the screen, or at least I've shared now on the screen what I've got in terms of snow and or my snow forecast. And after that's up, we could take a look at yours, Joe. But I'm thinking that for Long Island, for example, right along the immediate South Shore, you'll probably be picking up an inch or two. So if you're at the South Shore line, if you're at Freeport, for example, or maybe down in the Hamptons, I don't expect very much more than a couple of inches of slushy snow. And then, of course, as I said, it will change over to all sleet for a while on top of all of that. So it's going to be mushing that snow up. For much of Long Island, though, a couple to maybe, especially up across the North Shore areas, or maybe in the North Fork, 3 or 4 inches possible. This would also hold true for much of New York City, for northern Jersey, lower Westchester, south of Interstate 287, a couple to 4 inches of snow. And then as you continue going northward, up into the northwest corner of New Jersey, upper part of Rockland County, northern Westchester, Putnam, Orange, much of Dutchess and Ulster, and for Sullivan counties, 4 to 6 inches of snow. Now, I want to mention here, this morning I woke up, my radio went off, and I heard a local forecaster here saying that the worst of it would be after 7 o'clock this evening up until about midnight or 1 a.m. And he was saying something to the effect like, oh, and we're going to see 1 to 2 inches per hour. And I did a little quick calculation here, even though I was half awake. But I said, wait a minute, it was 7 o'clock to 1 a.m. That's 6 hours, 1 to 2 inches per
It's
hour.
7 to 14.
He's talking about like 6 to 12 or
6 to
seven to
12, 7
14.
to 14. Yeah, of
But
course, it's
then,
going to.
but then,
Go ahead.
but then after he said that, then he said overall 4 to 6 inches. I said, well, how do you get an inch or two per hour and only call for 4 to 6? I mean, you're conflicting yourselves here with
Yeah,
your forecast. So, you know, and I get kind of upset or angry about that when they don't think properly as to what is going to happen. But generally speaking, and I'm talking about all of you who are watching who follow my forecast in the lower Hudson Valley, much of the lower Hudson Valley, 4 to 6, lower Westchester or extreme southern Rockland, 2 to 4. And I'll tell you, depending upon how much sleet mixes in, and whether or not the sleet gets in here quicker than what I'm anticipating now, maybe you might want to put the emphasis on the lower end of those ranges. In other words, lower Westchester, maybe 2 or 3. The rest of the Hudson Valley, more like 4 or 5. But we're talking about, again, a storm. I'm talking about a storm that generally is going to be rolling in here in the evening and will be pretty much done. The worst of it will be done by midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning.
right. Well, your map and my map. Now, you and I have been doing this for a long time now, and every once in a while this happens. But my early call snow forecast map and my final call snow forecast map are were the same. I didn't change anything. That's the second time this winter that I've done that. But my forecast map, Joe, is pretty much the same as yours. I mean, it's almost identical. A couple of a couple of swiggles further north here, further south there. But
That's what
this
amazing. What's amazing about that is that you have, if you remember from my map, right along the immediate south coast of Long Island, I had that in the 1 to 2 inch zone, and
right,
there, just to the south of the 2 inch line and above the 1 inch line, that's where you have that part of Long Island. And you're right, 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 6 to 8. It's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I hesitated. When we looked at this, and in lieu of what happened just a few days ago, I just thought it was wise to go low end. So now the guidance has come in that way. But I have to tell you, there's a couple of things. The afternoon guidance here is decidedly mixed, which I'll get to in a second. But yeah, I mean, I'm thinking, Dutchess County northward, you're looking at 6 to 8. That's going to go all the way up to Albany, all through much of Massachusetts. I think Boston could do pretty well with this. I didn't want to start pushing topside numbers here for areas up to the northeast. Could it exceed 8 in some places? Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, I suppose, but you get the idea, folks. If it's 6 to 8 and it comes out to 8 to 9 in some spots, don't crucify me because I know everybody else is perfect in whatever it is they do. I got a 6 inch line along the coast of southern New England, so when it gets down to the Connecticut coast, to maybe about 287 in Westchester, and then I counted the northwestern counties. I put them in 4 inches or more. That is a little tough up there because the sleet changeover is going to actually go. It's probably going to change over first in the northern New Jersey counties, and possibly in like southern Orange and southern Rockland County before it changes over on Long Island. I mean, that's just how this whole thing is set up. Now, further south, I mean, I covered for an inch or two in central New Jersey, and back over into parts of southeast and south central PA, but that might be closer to the inch, and it might even be less than that. We're just going to have to wait and watch the radars and see what they're going to tell us for later today and for tonight. What amazed me, and this is what forecasters usually pay attention to this sort of stuff, especially old school forecasters like Joe and I. When the NAM model starts off with giving you, which was probably not last night, I think it was the night before last, giving LaGuardia like 8/10 of an inch of liquid and no cold, all snow. And even in Philadelphia, there was one period where you might go to sleep with the same amounts. You start to see those amounts cutting back, coming back. You start to see the temperature levels in the guidance going a little warmer, a little warmer. I mean, that's been the way things have worked out the last few weeks. So, and we're seeing the same thing happen again. I was looking at the 12Z NAM, Joe. If you believe the 12Z NAM, New York City barely gets a tenth of an inch of snow before it goes over to sleet and rain.
Yeah, and in fact, I guess we're going to show everybody because one of the
Oh,
advantages of doing this now is that now we have a chance to see the brand new 12Z GFS together, and it's interesting. The GFS and the NAM are pretty much aligned with each other in the forecast of the changeover to sleet. Right around midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, they have much of the area, and I'm not just talking about New York and Long Island. I'm talking about the up into the Hudson Valley sleet. So and
so
that's what I talked about, the warming trend aloft, which may lead to that changeover from all snow to sleet. That snow lovers is what's going to hurt you in your hopes of getting a really tremendous amount of snow. You're hoping for like 6 to 8 or 8 to 10 or 8 to 12. I mean, like you need the moisture, which, as Joe mentioned, the NAM, for example, has been cutting back on with each passing run, but also you need to hold it all as all snow, and that doesn't look like it's going to happen because things are going to be warming up as once we get into the storm early tonight.
so I've got the new, I think it's the latest one. Oh no, we got 15Z. Oh, it's out to 8 hours on the 15Z. Okay. So, a couple of things that have changed here. One is the uh, the fact that uh, the models actually had it snowing into Long Island by 7 o'clock tonight, and it's when I say Long Island, I mean covering all of Long Island and into Western Connecticut. It probably doesn't start up till after 7, so it's about 1 to 2 hours slower than what we were seeing. Also, it was much more filled in back a day or two ago in terms of snow over New Jersey and northeastern Pennsylvania. Now it's got a thinner look. Now, look, I'm gonna tell you there are conflicts with the short term models that are we're probably going to need to pay attention to hour by hour. The HRRR, a model that I have grown to hate because it loves to do. No, really, I do. I hate it because it does things, and you don't expect to see big changes uh, in the last 4 or 5 hours before an event, and it ultimately will always do that. It will be rather consistent. You get it to within like 5 or 6 hours of the event, and suddenly something changes. But so far, it hasn't changed, and the ARRR is actually one of the more aggressive models with this. So this is at 8 o'clock tonight, and you start to see the darker blue snows. It also has it snowing pretty far south into central New Jersey. Then you get into the sleet in southern New Jersey and into southern and southwest Pennsylvania. The low, the low itself is in northern West Virginia. Now, Joe, I think part of the problem is that the models were showing this low basically going almost straight east and just like redeveloping off the Delaware coast and just moving out. But as we've gotten closer to this, and the ARRR in particular has wanted to take the center up into northern Penn, the primary, and we're trying to hold on to the primary for too long. And you see it there at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm sorry, at midnight. It's got a low there up in northwest PA. So that's one issue because that holding on to the primary means warmer air gets further north. So now this is at 11 p.m. Still snowing in New York City and Long Island. Midnight, you actually have some dark blue heavy snow over western Long Island and northwest New Jersey. And then by 1 a.m., it's sleet into southern Orange and Rockland and into Westchester County. It's all sleet. It's still all snow, though, from central and eastern Long Island eastward. And this thing is, warm air is pushing up from the southwest. And then at 2 a.m., it's just about all sleet for everybody. It's rain for coastal and South Jersey. 8 a.m., it's pretty much done anyway after that. It's like 2 hours sleep on the back end. So when you look at the HRRR snow amounts, and this is off the latest run. This is the 14Z HRRR, Joe. It's got 6 inches plus across northern New Jersey, Long Island, the lower Hudson Valley, and southern Connecticut. It actually has lower amounts as you go north of Route 84
Weird.
and higher amounts south of 84 and I guess somewhere between Interstate 78 and 195 in New Jersey. So this is one of it just kind of suggests the ARRR is trying to hold on to this idea that there is going to be a substantial 5 to 6 hour thumping of snow ahead of the warmer air. Now I'm going to switch to the NAM. You can take a look at the NAM. Maybe Joe, you could maybe set up to do the F gens if you'd like.
Okay.
So the NAM on the snow map from the 12Z run, which I like, the NAM's 12 and 0Z runs are very detailed because you get 60 hours worth of numerical data as opposed to 48 on the odd runs. But the NAM, I mean, barely has an inch or two along the New York State New Jersey border. It's got zero point 0.4 inches of snow in New York City. It's got 3 inches for Long Island, 3 inches for Yonkers, and then it's got the bigger amounts, north of Danbury in Connecticut. You got 5 at Bridgeport. You've got 7 at Waterbury. You've got 6 at Poughkeepsie, 6 at Albany, 6 in Springfield, Mass, 8 in Worcester, almost 9 in Boston. So, I mean, the NAM on the southern end of this is saying not much of a front end thump with all of this, and that maybe it's more sleet than anything else. So yeah, I'm not going to start sitting here trying to figure out which dam is good. Maybe this is one of those instances where you got to sort of combine all the models um, with that and maybe just take an average. I hate doing that, Here's the GFS, by the way. The GFS gives 3.5 to New York City. It gives 8 for Yonkers, Joe. 8.
Hmm.
Seven, almost 7 for Bridgeport, and it's got this one little bubble. There's part, there's far less snow to the north. Oh, maybe I didn't go out far enough here. There we go. Okay, now it makes more sense. 9.2 for Bridgeport, 8 at Yonkers, 7 at Poughkeepsie, 7.5 at Hartford, 8 at Waterbury, 2.4 for Islip, 3.7 for New York City. So look, you can drive yourself crazy going from one to the other. Uh, I'm kind of happy with what I got for now.
Okay, well, you would ask for the FGen map, and hang on for a second. If I can get it here, I will share it. This is and for those who are the uninitiated, this is the area where we look for the best forcing, the best atmospheric energy, what might possibly line up with any localized bands of heavy precipitation. Interestingly, at 1 o'clock this afternoon, which is only, well, it's less than 2 hours from now, they have a band of FGen that is working its way almost diagonally across from northwestern Pennsylvania to central New Jersey, just getting ready to move into the immediate tri state area. Now, we've been saying that the snow will be beginning or kicking off around 7 o'clock this evening in and around the tri state area. And interestingly, they've got the best area of FGen or Omega or atmospheric energy off to the north of the New York area. Now, there's one area here over northern Pennsylvania, edging into northwestern New Jersey, and you kind of say to yourself, well, maybe that's going to slide south and eastward across the New York area during the upcoming hours. But then when you go to 1 o'clock in the morning, and as I said, at 1 o'clock a.m. tonight, pretty much the worst will be behind us in terms of precipitation. Take a look at this. Oh my goodness! I mean, the bands of energy are now not only out of the New York metropolitan area, they have shifted into the region north and east of New York, and so much so that now the lines are so thickly clustered together that you can't even see them up here. So this tells me, Joe, that this strengthens my belief that whatever we see is going to be, again, in the 6 hours from 7 o'clock this evening to 1 o'clock in the morning. That's when we're going to put down whatever we're going to put down. And then after 1 a.m., pretty much it's going to be dibbly squat. And
Yeah,
again,
I agree.
by 1 a.m., and maybe it's because of this activity moving so quickly to the south and west. Maybe the upper air flow is, or the winds down at the surface are turning more into a southwesterly direction, and that's going to help to boost the temperatures enough to change the snow over to sleet or ice pellets or whatever around midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. And by just as a point of reference here, by 7 a.m., it's gone. Look at that. It's way out over here toward Nova Scotia, and now it's just nothing more than just, westerly winds, cold and dry air moving into the tri-state region. And for those of you, I was watching local news on television this morning, and a lot of people said the same thing. Well, I don't know now with all that snow, I may not be able to go to my Super Bowl party.
Oh,
Most
please
people Super
stop.
Bowl most Super Bowl
Stop.
parties, I'm assuming, unless you're tuning in for the pregame show, which by the way on Fox 5 is going to start like at 1 o'clock. The game is not until like 6:30. The pregame is already at 1. So unless you're planning to start your party in the late morning or midday, you should be fine by game time by 6:30, because the snows will be long over, or the precipitation will be long over. We may actually even see tomorrow afternoon some breaks of sunshine, and we may actually see temperatures climb above freezing, and that may help you who have been cleaning up or clearing out all whatever is falling from the previous night, melting it down a little bit. So it will be okay if you're planning to go to a party. late tomorrow evening, you should be able to make it, so long as you decide to get out first thing tomorrow morning and clear away whatever has fallen from the previous night.
Right. I'll read you a message I got from Mr. Goodman, who sent this to me right when we were talking. Big conflict between the warmer NAM and the colder HRRR. NAM has 1 to 2 inches of snow, then a crust of sleet on top, and then rain or freezing rain. HRRR, snow till after midnight, 6 inches of it, and then straight to rain or freezing rain. With a screaming 700 millibar west southwest flow, I don't see how the latter can be 100% right. I'm referring to the HRRR with that kind of warm advection. RAP siding more with the RAP model, sides more with the HRRR. And Le Plumes, Joe, Le Plumes are somewhere in between. So, you decide. Um, maybe a little bit of everything blended together is the correct answer, where you get maybe it does snow 1 to 2 inches an hour, but instead of doing it for 6 hours, Joe, it does it for three, and you put down 3, 4, 5 inches really fast, and then it goes to sleet, and then it goes to rain, and then it's done. I mean, that's always a possibility.
That's interesting when we switch over to the NAM, the FGen map for the NAM. Now this makes a bit more sense than the GFS, although as I said, unfortunately the GFS is in 6 hour increments. We can play it hour by hour on the NAM. Here's 7 o'clock this evening, and you see that there's a swath or a band of pretty good FGen or Omega just to the south and west of New York City. And then as we go through the hours, this is 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m. Now look at that. Now 9 p.m., all of that activity, all of that energy is crossing right through the Hudson Valley and through central parts of Long Island. Now, if you're hoping for a burst of snow, if you're hoping for, as Joe mentioned, maybe an inch or two, that's where it probably is going to happen, maybe around 9 o'clock tonight. But then notice the rapid movement 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. I don't know. It seems like there may be a second punch of energy and moisture here at 11 o'clock tonight. 12, then 1 o'clock. See, very quickly it moves off to the north and east and is over, and that's it. So again, that strengthens my resolve. I'm saying or promoting that whatever we get out of this will be again in that 6 hour time frame from 7 o'clock this evening to 1 o'clock in the morning, and it may very well be that. I think generally speaking, it's going to be a half to 1 inch per hour with maybe some 1 to 2 inch per hour intensities thrown in somewhere, depending upon where we get a maybe localized snow band or snow bands early tonight. So that's going to be that's for all of you snow lovers. That's going to be the thrill time, and it's not going to be a cheap thrill. It'll be thrilling to look out and see all that stuff falling quickly, fast and furiously. But again, there's only so much you can squeeze out of that. After 1 a.m., it's all over. And again, the question about warm air advection aloft and whether or not we see that change over to sleet more rapidly or more slowly. So that's it. I mean, it's all going to be bundled into one 6 hour interval, and that'll be again 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. tonight.
All right, let me just run through real quick. We got tip jar hits from David Fuller. Thank you, David. Brandon Doherty, and he says he really likes it when we are on at 11 a.m. on the weekends. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, we're not going to make it a habit. Yeah, Gary Crosby, he says you guys are the best. Do you miss the snow and living in New Jersey? Well, I didn't live in New Jersey. I lived on Long Island, and I did up until this past January here in North Georgia because it was so really for here, it was brutally cold. I mean, it was sustained cold all month. I got my 4 inches of snow, and and it stayed on the ground for 9 days. I was waiting for it to just go away, and so. But the answer is no. I don't. If you asked me this question a couple of years ago, I would have said, yeah, probably. Missed the snow part of it, but less so now. And Leon of Lindenhurst hits the tip jar. Thank you, Leon, for doing that. We got 89 likes so far. We always like to go to 100 likes so that Joe can play the bell toller of Notre Dame, and anyway, we're at 90 likes. So if you can get us over 100, that would be terrific. All right, let's run through what's going on as we switch over to the watches and mornings map, and we've got winter storm warnings up for much of central and southern, actually all of central and southern and southeastern New England, including the Cape. Winter storm warnings in the Hudson Valley, pushing up into northern New York and even into portions of north central New York. Winter weather advisories from Long Island to New York City. And except for two counties, you know what I didn't understand? Okay, I did not understand this. They had winter storm warnings up. Let me see if it was just a mistake on somebody's part. I want to see if they corrected this. But yesterday, when they put up the winter storm warning, they had a winter storm warning up for western Bergen and western Passaic counties. But doesn't western Bergen County lie on the border of eastern Passaic County?
You're asking somebody who really is not that good
I
in
mean,
terms of
unless I don't know the
geography.
geographic area very well. I mean, I know Bergen County, and I'm not quite confident about Passaic County. I mean, I can understand they doing it for Western Passaic because the area in
100.
Western Passaic County kind of mimics what goes on in Orange County whenever you get a northeast wind, blowing upslope there. So maybe Eastern Passaic. I just found it odd that they had it in, maybe Eastern Passaic sits in more of a valley. So if there's somebody out there that lives in Eastern Passaic or in Passaic County that knows it well. Hey, Passaic County fishing, maybe you can answer my question as to why, because I was kind of wondering if you're going to do it for Western Bergen and you're going to do it for Western Passaic, but you're not going to do it for Eastern Passaic. So he says in Eastern Passaic County, it's higher elevation. So maybe that's it. Maybe it's lower elevation in Western Passaic, Eastern Passaic, as opposed to Western Passaic, and higher elevations in both Western Bergen and in Western Passaic. Okay, and then I spent enough time on all right, so we've got advisories down through Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C., Baltimore under a winter weather advisory. That covers much of Maryland into northern and northwestern Virginia. West Virginia, we have ice storm warnings in effect again for the Allegheny Mountains for the second time in 2 days. We also have advisories and winter storm warnings up for northern Michigan, for northern Wisconsin, and for southern and central Minnesota. Not a whole lot of activity going on in the west. Clouds are rolling in. It's not a solid overcast. There's still some thin spots I see, Joe, on the loop, but you can see the heavier overcast to the south and also to the west as this whole system shifts eastward. That's the one thing about this whole overall pattern is the fact that the west to east flow is so flat. I mean, everything basically is moving in west to east direction and moving, rather quickly. And as long as that's the case, you're not going to get intensifying systems. You're just going to have to work with whatever it is you have to work with. And it's no wonder that these systems look like the models want to amplify them when we're in the longer range. And then by the time we get to the shorter range, they wind up being, very flat, more west to east. And I don't want to say non-events, but they're nothing major we're dealing with.
Yeah, the just backing up here in time. Um, you may remember that I mentioned several days ago that there was one local TV weather forecaster here in the New York area that was promoting the fact that, oh, well, yeah, we got some systems coming in for Thursday and for Saturday, but the one in my opinion looks like the one that's really going to make a difference will be the one that we're expecting next week, Wednesday, Thursday, or whatever. And we'll look at that in just a moment. But Joe, it's looking now that the system everybody was looking at for Tuesday may actually run underneath the New York City metropolitan area. That can change, of course, but for the longest time they were saying, "Oh, that's another one coming on Tuesday, and another one coming on Thursday," and now it's looking more and more like Thursday. might be more of a mixed bag, or maybe even a change to rain for many locations. Again,
It
that
might
could
look like this. It may look something like the one couple of days ago in this one, with a low going more to the west, maybe, but not being as amplified as whatever the models are showing. It'll probably be less deep, but yeah, I mean, it could be the same thing again.
and Tom Contino, of course, jumping to conclusions. And I will only say, Tom, you are 100% wrong. The forecaster I'm making an allusion to is not Lonnie Quinn. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But please don't jump to conclusions, Tom. If you want to be Walter Winchell, and if you don't know who Walter Winchell is,
You're
you could
not
look him
old.
up.
If you
You could
don't
look him
know,
up.
if you know who Walter Winchell is, you're too old.
Yeah, but I mean, like, if you want to be somebody like that who hears one or two little snippets of information and immediately concludes that it's somebody or something, you go right ahead. But it was not Lonnie when I'm making the allusion to the. I'm just saying it was just so annoying. I wish people wouldn't make definitive forecasts, definitive predictions more than 4 or 5 days down the road. I mean,
I
I
don't
just
have
said,
this.
and
I
I
don't.
broke my own rule. I broke my own rule by saying now it looks like the system on Tuesday may go underneath us, and the one on Thursday might be more rain than snow. And I just broke my own rule because the Thursday system indeed is like 5 days down the road. It could change. Things can change. This is a very, very humbling business, weather forecasting is, and you really can't go too far into the future because what you think now may not necessarily happen many days. I love these. I love these people, these forecasters on Facebook or on websites. They post maps. Oh, look at this! A big storm coming. It's like the 297-hour prog. I mean, it's crazy. It's interesting to see where the trends are, but you can't be too definitive much beyond 3 or 4 days.
Right. Radar's got some precip. Now, I was looking at the odds at 11 o'clock. It was not reaching the ground in South Jersey and in much of Delaware. You have to go pretty far south in the Delmarva Peninsula to find any of this precip actually reaching the ground. Washington, D.C. had a few flurries at 10 o'clock, but this is sort of renegade stuff. It's all part of the setup. And then, of course, you've got snow across um, Wisconsin into Michigan, arcing through Lake Michigan and back into Minnesota. So that's part of the energy that's responsible for what's going to be going on here tonight. WPC has a lot of precip for the next 7 days. So we're talking about several events, and some places are impacted by all three. Some places only 2 out of 3. Some places 1 out of 3. But we're talking solid precip amounts of 1.5 inches to almost 5 inches plus in northern Alabama into parts of Tennessee and North Georgia. And then also we have 1.5 inches to 2.5 inches Virginia, the mid-Atlantic coast, and into the coast of southern New England. The west coast also pretty busy. So we showed you the HRRR. We showed you the NAM. We can show you the GFS, and this is the GFS radar. Yeah, we only have 3 hourlies here. Actually, I can get you. I can do. I mean, these are 6 hourlies here on Tropical Tidbits. I'll switch to Pivotal where we could do 3 hourlies. So that'll help the cause a bit. So let's do the regional so that we can be useful to people who live in other places. So this is the GFS, right? Yes, it's the GFS, and it's the new GFS. And this is at 7 o'clock. Look at where the heavy snow is. The dark blue heavy snow is in northeastern Pennsylvania and in southern New York. So you always know you're going to change over you're going to have something with a changeover. If it's snowing and there's light snow on the radar, Joe, that reaches up to Rochester and Syracuse and even a little bit beyond there. If it starts snowing there first before it starts snowing in New York City, that is a telling sign that you're going to be dealing with a changeover. Purple sleet is evident here in southeast PA and then back over into the Alleghenies where you got freezing rain. And this is at 10 o'clock. Look where the sleet line is on the GFS at 10 o'clock. It's almost already up to Route 80. It's snow on Long Island. It's snow north of Route 80. It's snow in the Hudson Valley in Connecticut. And at 1 a.m., it's all sleet across Long Island, southern Connecticut, all of northern New Jersey. You got freezing rain between 78 and 195, and rain from there. Sleet in parts of Rockland and in Orange County. And then at 4 a.m., it's like you said, there's just some leftover light precip, light rain and sleet along the coast. It'll probably change to a little snow before it ends, and light snows for inland areas. And then out it goes. Boston catches it. The heavy snows are setting up for the Hudson for for, for the Hudson Valley, especially Route 84 North, also for Connecticut and for Massachusetts. And actually, southeastern New England may do pretty well with this because the secondary low is forming and taking over and moving out straight to the east. Now, if you want to see the next system, I will leave this here so we can look at it on the 3 hourlies. So the famed Tuesday system, the snow barely makes it to New York City and Long Island for a 3 hour period, uh, a very light snow. This is probably going to be a pretty sizable snow producer for uh, Virginia, for maybe Maryland. Let's take a look and see what the radar looks like on the GFS.
Delaware weather guy was absolutely right. This is really nothing more than a flat wave, a rapidly moving flat wave that is going to pass, as you point out, Joe, south of the New York area for the most part, but could, in the time that it's around, bring a significant snowfall to places like West Virginia, Northern Virginia, portions of the Delmarva, Maryland. Um, so that's not for us. This is for the folks who are off to the south. So all of you who are, let's say, in South Jersey or the Delmarva area and are upset about the fact you're going to miss out tonight, well, you may very well get it all back with the next system coming our way on Tuesday.
Yeah, this is going to be actually, I think, a pretty good snow for producer for Delaware, particularly southern Delaware, back over to Washington, D.C., Baltimore, down through all of Virginia and West Virginia. Dave Tolerous land in Richmond will be straddling the fence, but he might actually do okay with this. And then that goes out, and then you mentioned last week, Joe, about the fact that the thing in the South coming out in pieces rather than one piece. And that's what's happening here. One piece comes out on Tuesday, a stronger piece comes out right behind it. That stronger piece goes to the west. Again, I'll take a low up the west side of the Appalachians. So it's snow to sleet to rain in most of the Northeast, except, far northern New York and up into northern New England. After that, it gets cold and the upper air gets very interesting in the long range, I think. So, for now, I would just sort of, it's always a good idea to sort of ignore the specifics. I do want to also point out that when you look at the upper air here for what's going on right now, you have uh, really, it's just look how flat it is. It's just flat. You can barely find the shortwave involved. You also have a troughing that's dropping down into the northwest that's creating a rather strong west-southwest flow in the upper atmosphere. I just want to go up to the 700 millibar level. And I mean, it's mostly Pacific air here that's at that level that's moving west to east. And that's not really that's going to warm those mid levels up to create a changeover. But if you want to look in the long haul, uh, you've got the teleconnections are all going to be in your favor again. We saw what happened when we had favorable teleconnections in January. It was cold and dry. So we're going back to the same connections. Big block developing from Greenland across the Arctic. Uh, 50-50 low. You're going to have uh, you know, all everything displaced to the south in terms of cold air. But does that guarantee anything? No, it doesn't. So we're going to have a favorable pattern going forward after this week, and with the Mad Julian oscillation, with the NAO, the AO, the PNA, all of it. So uh, will it result in anything? Uh, Maybe not. Maybe it will, and maybe it won't. It's part of the mystery of living, I guess.
The
So,
mystery of life.
yes.
I do want to show somebody show everybody something here, um, and I just want to get it up on the screen. It is something as I received it as I'm a member of the AMS. I guess you did too, Joe. Email concerning a message from the president of the American Meteorological Society. That is David Steinrud. And it is, I admit, this is political, but it is something that the meteorological community in general is very concerned about,
And
should be
should
con-
be, by the way.
should be concerned about. This is from again the president of the American Meteorological Society, and he writes, "Dear AMS community, in recent weeks, the new administration has been rolling out executive orders that directly impact the public sector component of the weather and climate enterprise and are already reaching into the other sectors. The depths of these changes is unclear, but it seems apparent that the weather and climate enterprise we know today will not be the same tomorrow. Now, our community has worked diligently and constructively over several decades to delineate the roles played by the private, public, nonprofit, and academic sectors in service to our nation. This goal has been to increase the effectiveness of the weather and climate enterprise, taking advantage of the strengths of each sector and building synergies across sectors. The result of these partnerships has been impressive, providing a very large return on public investment by all measures that I have seen. In addition to advancing foundational science that is critical to weather forecasting, we provide essential services that the public relies on to stay safe, that businesses rely upon for their economic health and security, that guide future investments across large portions of the economy, and that educate future leaders. Communication with our elected representatives is crucial right now. We all have a voice, and we are all stronger together than apart. AMS is working with other scientific societies to amplify our voice about the importance of science in our community's role in service to the nation. At this critical juncture, I urge you to contact your elected representatives in the United States House and Senate and share your perspectives on our successes and their importance to our country. Whichever sector you work in, you are a valued and integral part of the weather and climate enterprise, and that you should be proud of all that we have accomplished. The work that we do is a vital part of our nation's infrastructure and contributes to its security and prosperity. Signed, David Steinstrud, 2025 AMS President. I believe I heard or read somewhere that in the supposed Project 2025, which the administration claims it had no knowledge of and claimed that nothing like that would be rolled out, is indeed being rolled out. And the impact on meteorology and the National Weather Service would be to remove many officials, government officials who work at the National Weather Service and at NOAA, and to privatize weather information. Now, what does that mean for us? Well,
Oh, I'll tell you what it means for us.
well, I, from what I've been able to read into it, we could openly just go on the internet and grab whatever we'd like from NOAA or from the National Weather Service in terms of weather data, weather information, weather maps, GFS, NAM, whatever. But if they decide that they're going to privatize all of this, you will still be able to get that, but you're going to have to pay through the nose maybe to get it. Um,
Well,
it's what were you
you know what'll happen, Joe? It's going to turn into well, the weather websites from the Weather Service are basically going to turn into the European what Europe has. When you go on European weather websites, the amount of information that's available on there is like minuscule. Okay, it's so bare bones, it's ridiculous. And I mean, to the point where a lot of these sites, you're not even allowed to show the maps that they have on there. Um, uh, uh, they've got it all, the European, by the way, the European model is that's a private company, and it took years for them to, we had to pay, you had to pay to have it. And if you wanted to show some of the maps in the longer range, I actually pay, I pay a licensing fee to show pivotal weather with regards to the European. So what's going to happen is that all of that stuff, you're right, it's all going to disappear. Uh, we're going to have to pay for everything. And you know what? If we got to pay for everything, that means that we have to do we have to consider charging a subscription, for doing this show? Do we even want to do? There's also a question of liability here too, that comes into play, because if the Weather Service is no longer a public entity that uh, that gives out weather information to everybody, and it all gets privatized. Well, a private forecasting company puts out a forecast that doesn't work, doesn't come out right, or maybe a warning is not, they're going to have to be the ones issuing warnings and watches and all the rest of it. Where a warning is not issued for a tornado or everything else, uh, those companies that are going to be doing that, they're going to be liable for it. They're going to get sued. So it'll change. It's going to change our world here if that stuff happens. I am so violently opposed to this. I urge everybody. I don't care what your politics are. This is specific to what we deal with here, and what Joe and I have worked with Weather Service people side by side. We've had them here on the show, on the air, which they can't do now because of everything that's going on. So I really urge you to contact your congressman and your senator, and tell them, do something to stop this.
It's a
This is
scary,
not good. Do
it's a
something to
scary,
stop it.
it's a scary situation. And one of the people who Joe and I Joe worked with him because he was at the National Weather Service as an intern. I knew him because he was one of my adjunct professors at City College, Tom Grant. And if anybody waved the flag more than Tom Grant, I don't know who did. I remember that whenever after any major storm, Tom always referred to the National Weather Service not as the NWS, but as the People's Service. And folks, if the current administration has plans of what they are alluding to or suggesting, the National Weather Service is not going to be the People's Service anymore. It's going to be, again, the privatization service. And that is a very scary scenario. So, again, if you can contact your congressman or senator or whatever like that and tell them how you feel about this. I've been hearing about retribution, and that the guy who is now sitting at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue is in a retribution mode. And many of you remember all of the flack that he took when he refused to admit that he made a mistake in saying that Alabama was in the path of a major hurricane, and used a Sharpie pen and tried to change the way or the look of the forecast. And so many people came down on him. And so I'm sure that this is part of retribution, that he says, well, that's how you feel? I'm going to take care of the National Weather Service for all of you people. And that may be the reason why, the sole reason why we're seeing this happen. I don't want to
I will. Let me just jump in here. It's not the sole reason, Joe. There are certain weather companies out there. I know of a couple. I'm not going to say which ones. I'm not even. I'm just not. Uh, there have been weather companies that have been lobbying for a long, long time. We're talking decades, to get rid of the Weather Service, to privatize it all, because what matters here, Joe, what really matters here is the data. Okay? It's the data. You get control of the data, you can make a fortune. Okay? And there are weather companies, the private sector, weather companies in the private sector, some of them yield a big influence, want the Weather Service to be shut down, and have wanted to shut the Weather Service down for the better part of the last 30 years. Okay? That's what that is also what is behind all this. It isn't just whatever is the politics of Washington, inside there. There are weather companies that want this to happen because then they can make a fortune by all that data. Can you imagine trying to get a- the hourly data of all the cities in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states and having to pay for that every hour?
No,
I mean, we're going to
it
be
was bad
left,
enough. It was bad enough when I was at a private weather forecasting service back in the late '70s, and we had to pay hundreds of dollars a month to have the data lines come into our
yeah.
office. We could have those teleprinters type out all of that information on an
And that
hourly
was
basis.
$1970, not $2023.
And now
Okay.
you've got it all free. You just
Yeah.
well, not all free, but I mean you're paying for the service, the internet service that you're paying. But look at all the data that you have at your disposal now. All of that will go bye bye
Yeah.
if this comes to pass in the coming next year or two. So
Well, yeah.
something that you want to consider. All of you love, on your own looking at the NAM and all these maps or whatever. That unless you want to pay, big time, you might want to write to your senator or congressman or whatever and say, hey, I like the National Weather Service. I like NOAA. I like the way things have been. And yeah, and I know, Joe, because one of the people who worked at the private office that I used to work at, he came from one of those weather services that you alluded to, and he stole. He was supposed to hand it back, but he stole and brought with him the playbook, the playbook of the stuff that weather service wanted. And you turn page after page after page. Oh, we don't want to sound too weather bureau-ish. We don't want to sound like them.
Right.
They don't know what they're talking about or whatever. So you're right. They would love to put the National Weather Service out of business and make it all their own. And we don't want that to happen.
Yeah. So look, contact your senator, contact your congressman, write letters, send emails. You write letters instead of sending emails, by the way. If you actually handwrite a letter, you stand a better chance of it being actually read. Because when someone gets a handwritten letter in a place of business, their approach be, and I've been told in many cases it is that if somebody took the time to actually handwrite a letter, they're serious. Okay. But whatever you do, please, it's really important that that we don't see the destruction of the National Weather Service because it just would be a disaster, and it would hurt all of us, including us. Okay, and we don't want to hurt us, right, Joe? You don't want to hurt us.
I'm not hurting anybody.
No.
I, but you don't want to say. Here's the thing that'll get to everybody, Joe. Do you want to see the end of the Joe and Joe weather show?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's listen. If
That
if the weather service goes away, if the weather service goes away, you, that's a possibility. That could happen because what are we going to be able to show? What are we going to be able to talk about? What are we supposed to do? Get a blackboard and start drawing with chalk again? Um, no, it ain't going to happen. So, well, look, this game, this thing has a ways to play out yet. Let's see where it goes. But anyway, oh,
Well, on that happy note, at least let's shift over. All of you snow lovers, all of you snow weenies out there, you're going to get a few hours of happiness this evening. Hope you enjoy it. Hope all of you enjoy your Super Bowl parties tomorrow. Eat hearty, enjoy
right,
the commercials, and we'll see you on Monday. Oh, Monday,
Monday.
Monday, Monday. There's a possibility we may do something interesting. Joe, I'm still waiting to get a link from the library. I'm giving a talk about, it's called And Now Here's Your Forecast, about what TV weather and radio weather people do or have done over the years. And I'm giving it for the Warner Library and the Putnam Valley Library here in the Hudson Valley at 7 o'clock. And I suggested to Joe that maybe it might be possible to um, actually carry that talk on the Joe and Joe Weather Show while I'm also giving the talk to the patrons of each of those libraries. So we'll see how this all pans out. I may not know the answer until Monday morning or Monday midday, Joe. But if it looks like that is possible, I'll send you the link, the Zoom link for the library talk. And if you're interested, 7 o'clock we would do the talk on the show, and then after I'm done with that, then we'll perhaps have our regular Joe and Joe at a little later time, 8:30, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, works for me. So we'll let you know on Monday when I post the show when I put it up. You'll know that we're what we're doing. Okay. So have a great rest of your weekend. Enjoy the Super Bowl if that's what you're doing, and we'll see you on Monday. Bye bye.
Hi, folks.